Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the third round of the X2O trophy which took place in Hamme and the fourth round of the Superprestige which took place in Merksplas. With me here to do that is Issam. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
A double episode this weekend. I already posted it on our Blue Sky and our X account. The reason that we have a double episode this weekend and not the regular two of them is that I'm working at the Eurocross Academy 15-16 block. We're here with some nieuwelingen, 9 in total, 5 girls and 4 boys. We raced in Hever in Belgium yesterday. After that we drove 3 hours to the north of the Netherlands, quick turnaround because today we raced in Almelo. I watched both of the men races. I only had time to catch the highlights of the women's races. Luckily, Issam, I'm counting that you have all the knowledge for us.
I will try to do my best in that department, but we will get through it for sure.
Lots of learning for these riders I am with. It's really good also to be at these grassroots events because you can see some younger talents before they hit the junior category. Also interesting to just see how these B races work. I mean, I've been there a number of times, but it's always good to go there. That's really the grassroots, the basis of the cyclocross pyramid. It's where so many riders learn it with races for all age categories, and someday maybe some of those riders will race in Hamme or will race in Merksplas. We'll start by talking about Hamme. Luckily, both races had similar courses, similar race circumstances, similar race scenarios, so we'll avoid a lot of overlap. We'll go over Hamme first, talk about some things that we saw in the race in Merksplas as well, and then we'll eventually end with things from Merksplas that were not covered. So let's start with the men's race in Hamme. We had a very big pack for a large part of the race. I think for the first few laps it was a big group, then there was a leading group of 3, 4, a couple of riders came across, a couple of riders made bad impressions and they made good impressions. Really, it went a lot of ways. At some point I thought Orts was going to win, but then his lead kind of melted. It came down to a final lap battle between Pauwels Sauzen duo Baloise Michael van Toerenhout, Jeansman Niels Vandeputte, Baloise Trek European champion Thibaut Nys, and Spanish champion Felipe Orts. It was Vandeputte who had been sitting back in the laps before and then finally hit the front. Issam and Nys were kind of dueling with each other. Issam was the one in the wheel of Vandeputte for the longest, but Nys, he tried to get past, but it didn't really look like his day. He made too many mistakes, and in the final lap on the U-turn, the off-camber, he needed to put a foot down. It was between Issam and Vandeputte, and it was Vandeputte who never gave away the leading position. Nys could still have ended third after that mistake, despite being overtaken by Orts, but Nys then was overtaken by Van Toerenhout because of an incident we didn't see, and then he crashed. He finished outside of the top 10. Orts finished third, so the podium was Vandeputte, Issam and Orts in summary. I think it was an interesting approach by Vandeputte here. The course was technical, it was super hard to overtake, and still he decided to gamble. He had big balls today, I would say. He sat back, waited. I thought he waited too long. It looked like he almost had missed it. He needed to chase, close some gaps, but everything came in his place, and in the final lap, when it mattered the most, he took the lead and he led almost the entire lap. And since it's so hard to overtake, he did it, and that was what he didn't do in Merksplas. Merksplas also a good course for him, but there he was also sitting too far back and he couldn't make that move to the front. He wrote on Instagram he was very disappointed, and today all the chips came in place for him, and let's be honest, it was long overdue that he would take a big victory this season.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that for him, what he was able to do today, at least in Hamme, is that he was able to utilize his strongest point, which is his last lap, in my opinion. If he has the legs for it, he's very hard to beat on the last lap because he's technically very well handling the bike through the corners, and he showed it again today. It was sublime when he made that attack, which was a difficult moment to overtake Issam. He did that and put Issam under pressure. Issam was never really able to get back into his wheel, and it was a perfect race from his side. And I think that we were just waiting for such a race to get it, go his way, and him playing it well. And we got to be honest, he had the experiences for races where he had to race for 5th, 6th, 4th position. even for a podium. But for a win, it's a bit different, and there comes, there's a lot of pressure on it. It's just a different way of racing, and I think today he found the way of winning a race, and I think that is great to see. It's a great development from his side, and he should be very proud with the result, and I think the way he did it as well. As you said, he gambled a lot, but the gambling paid off, and that is also something that is part of cyclocross, and especially with the course that we got. That's the way you got to do it sometimes, especially if it's a bit faster. The mid part of the race where you try to close the gaps and try to attack and put the others under pressure might cost you in the last lap, and we have seen that with a couple of riders, to be honest, today.
You need to have a bit of luck on courses like this. You cannot really permit a bad start. That wouldn't really be a lucky factor, but you need to have the luck that the pace drops at the right moment, or that the moment you decide to sit in, there's no team tactics played, or there's not exactly at that moment a crash, which we saw, for instance, when Iserbyt went down about halfway through the race. In a way, you also create your own luck, but I do still think that everything needs to come in its place to win a race like Hamme, or as Merksplas. We'll probably cover the win of Sveik in the second part, but for him also everything came together in Merksplas, and in a similar way it all came together for Vandeputte here. And that's what you need at the moment to win a race, especially if you have Iserbyt and Nys who might physically be just that tad stronger. You need to utilize on the fact that Iserbyt crashes, or on the fact that Nys has a bad start. And Vandeputte, I would say, did that well. He paced a bit early on in the race to try and capitalize on that. Let Iserbyt and Van der Haar do a bit of gameplay for the overall classification, which is, of course, on time. But here's the thing with Vandeputte that I would like to discuss before we move on. How long do you think he can sustain this form? He's finished in the top 5 of all but one race. 6th place in Merksplas is the worst result of his season. That's incredible. He's finished on the podium a bunch of times, but he's also raced a lot. The only big race he hasn't done is the Koppenberg. And he compensated for that in a way by starting his season a week earlier in Brumath in France. How long do you think Vandeputte can keep this up?
That's a good question. I think that we have to keep in mind that he is somewhat of a pure cyclocross rider, so for him, the summer doesn't really matter that much, and he, everything, the focus is completely on what's going to happen in the winter. I think if he plays it smart, he's going to find a week or two and take some rest, train a little, and then get back before the busiest period of this season, which is obviously the Christmas period. I think if he does that would be a very smart decision, but we have to wait to see if he's going to plan it out like that. If he doesn't do that, then I think that the Christmas period will truly be his, that will be his Waterloo. I think that is going to be the moment where you're just going to feel it. And you already see it, to be honest. Several riders that if they pushed a little bit too hard on a double weekend, they paid the price the second race already. And that's only going to happen more and more, and riders are going to make choices during a race, and that's what we're going to see. And for him, we have to expect that there is going to be a moment where his performance will not really be comparable to how he's racing right now. But the question is really going to be when, and I think when it's going to get busier and busier, Christmas period, the World Cups are coming, that could be a moment where it might count as too much, and it will just hurt him a little bit more to put in the performances he's putting in right now. But I think that doesn't really do anything under for what he's doing right now, and it looks very good, and hopefully he can maintain that. That would be even more awesome.
So Vandeputte will obviously need to make choices, and the choice he needs to make is obvious. He is second in the Superprestige, which is super close, razor-thin margins there. He should focus on the Superprestige. And he's sixth in the X2O trophy, but he didn't do the Koppenberg. There'll be more races here that don't suit him. Drop the X2O trophy and see what you can do in the World Cup with a reduced schedule. I don't think he'll do all the World Cups. He'll need to go training at some point. He'll probably skip one or two and then just see. I mean, I think that's the way to go for him. Focus on the Superprestige, try and win that. There's a lot of Superprestige races in the Christmas period. From the top of my head, we have Gulligem, Diegem, and Mol. That's 3 of them. Mol is also after 2 World Cups in Hulst and Zonhoven. So if he focuses on the Superprestige, maybe the other classifications are of less importance. He's still 24, so he needs to make some choices. Somebody who's certainly not doing that is Eli Iserbyt. He's also older and he's done it before and it worked out quite decent for him. I think the situation for him is a bit different. What do you make of his weekend, Issam? Because his race in Hamme, after that crash, or actually also before that crash, I wouldn't have given a single penny for his chances of a win, probably not even a podium. He finishes second, comeback, kind of the reverse race of Lars van der Haar, who had a bad start, chased, looked good, came to the front, changed bikes, and fell back.
I agree with you on that. I think Iserbyt had that mishap where he wasn't able to get over that hill, and then from there he was behind, had to chase, but at that moment didn't look great because Van der Haar was actually able to pass him in his chase to the front. And with Iserbyt, it's the mistakes are adding up. But I talked about it last week, and it's happening again. It's just the mistakes that he's making during the race. And those are mistakes that he normally would not make, because we have seen it before that he wasn't making those, and now he is. And I don't know what it is. The shape is it's not bad, because we saw how he was able in the end to play a role and actually be able to fight for victory. And if it wasn't for the mishap that he had, and he was able, where he had to put some energy into the chase, who knows if he maybe had that little extra to be in the wheel of Vandeputte, and what then? Maybe he was able to sprint. But that is obviously not how the scenario played out, and he wasn't able to do that, but still came out okay with a second place. And it's a weird season, I have to say, for him. I think it's maybe we expected a little bit more. I did personally, and it's not coming out. It's he just lacks. There is always someone a little bit better at the moment, and he has to deal with that, and that's a difficult situation, I think, because it's not. He cannot really focus on one guy and be like, that is going to be the one that could beat me. It's every time, we're going to come to Merksplas as well, but there are several players right now that can take the win, and for him, he's always up there, but he just, the amount of wins are not really there compared to what it could have been. And yeah, it's a bit off, but I have to say overall for his performance in Hamme was okay. It was not a bad performance. He came out quite well, fought back, and I think that he can be relatively happy with second.
Well, he should be happy with second, because where I said you create your own luck, Iserbyt certainly didn't create his own luck today. He didn't really deserve that second place based on the way the race unfolded, but he just got lucky and got that place meant in the end. I would agree that it's an underwhelming season for him. Not only did you and I expect more, he expected more. And you say he can't really focus his race on one key player, and I think that's what he did today. And also in Merksplas. They're kind of hyper fixated on Thibaut Nys, or at least Baloise, when that doesn't reflect the current state of the land. If you look at the lay of the land in the men's category, I would probably say that Iserbyt and Nys are a small step above the rest. And then there's a whole pack of riders that if they have a good day or if one of the others has a bad day, can compete for the win. And that goes like 10, 15 riders deep maybe for a podium place. And that doesn't really seem to be working out now. I don't know if he really could have won more, because Iserbyt is also an all-round rider. What does he excel at? He's really, really good at these super steep hills, but that's pretty much the only thing that he's really, really good at compared to the rest. In cornering and in acceleration and in all that, he's not special. He was winning races because he was physically much stronger than the rest. He could push more watts. But if you ask me what's special about Vandeputte, I'll say he is super explosive in the final lap. He can put out power there like nobody else. He can jump barriers like almost nobody else. If you ask me what's special about Thibaut Nys, we'll come up with he's a very all-round rider, but his weapons are his sprint, his cornering, some technical skills. If you come up with Zweek, what's his weapon? Sand. If you ask him what's Iserbyt's weapon, short hills, but how many times is such a short hill like in Niel really decisive in the race? It's not. And with the way that the current field is shaping up, it's very hard for Iserbyt to win races, which is why you see that in Merksplas he resorted to quite aggressive team tactics. And while we're on that, we can talk about Pauwels Sauzen in general, because not only Iserbyt has been disappointing. It's been a disappointing season for Pauwels Sauzen all out. Betsema hasn't performed. Bentveld hasn't really lived up to the expectations so far. Van Toerenhout is having a very, very, very flat season. Iserbyt is up there but doesn't get the wins. It's not going great for them. And in Merksplas they resorted to aggressive team tactics, like I said. That didn't work out. I don't know still if Iserbyt was hoping that he could tire them out and finish it off in the final lap, or if he felt that he didn't have the legs and should help Van Toerenhout win. But if that was the tactic, the second case, then they made their moves way too early, because they burned Van Toerenhout out. He had nothing left in the final lap. Iserbyt didn't have anything either. Wasted opportunity, because if there's one place where you can do team tactics, it's in that forest in Merksplas, and that worked out once, but still it didn't get Pauwels Sauzen the result that they hoped for.
No, and I think that I agree totally with you on the fact that Pauwels Sauzen is currently a bit underperforming. But, with Van Toerenhout, good race, or somewhat of a good race today as well, and especially in Merksplas he was able to play a big role, but not the wins. And that is probably the most disappointing part of it, is that Pauwels Sauzen is normally a team, especially on the men's side, that at least they have some wins on their belt, but now it's just not that much, and they play a role. But as we said already, that there are just more players at the moment that could play a role and for victory, and could decide races and could take matters into own hand. And the team tactics, they work at times, but you have to use them well. And you also need, sometimes it's not only the difference, but it's also kind of the riders not being able to close the gap that you created. And I think that is just not really the case anymore. I think that the riders that are right now competing on the men's side, the tricks are not going to play a huge role. Maybe on the last lap, but then you need to have the legs to be on the last lap. So I think for Pauwels Sauzen, it's an eye-opening moment, and I think they got that moment already last year when we saw that Baloise was very strong in the opening of the season. But it's for them. They need to look into how they could turn this around. Maybe not even this season, but for the seasons that are coming up, because there is talent coming from a lot of corners, and there are a lot of riders that could be here for staying for a while. They have the youth with them, so it's an interesting situation and development, and we're going to see how Pauwels Sauzen will take that on, and if Iserbyt and Van Toerenhout can bounce back, because there is still quite some races coming up our way.
Of course, the season is far from lost. I'm not trying to give that impression, because if you do well in the Christmas period, you can rake together a couple of good results and stuff. But Mette Penning is always the one to talk about the wins and proud of how many TV crosses he wins. I just can't help but think that he will also be disappointed by the fact that it's so far one TV win, the exact cost of Iserbyt in Heerde that was. So they announced a new sponsor last week. They're going to be called Pauwels Sauzen Cibel Clementines from the 1st of January. That's going to be a very long name for us to pronounce and put on the graphics. But it is what it is. They're getting some extra money. They'll want to invest in a new big name as soon as he or she enters the market. They didn't really do that after Zweek departed from the team. In terms of talent, they have Jordi Corses, who is very talented. I think he's the best of the U23s they have on their team. Wies Nijmens has a long trajectory back from a very nasty injury. And then Victor van den Berg is doing decent, but Corses is really the special one out of those three. He should be doing some nice things. He was, I think, 4th at the European Championships U23 this year. Very good rider. So that's somebody that they have coming up in their team. But yeah, you're right, Issam. They should look at the future. They should look at what they do on the women's side. How much do they want to invest there? How much do they want to do? It's good for cross that there are so many different teams at the front now as well. So let's talk about their rival then, Baloise Trek Lions. Thibaut Nys was the man that should have done it this weekend, kind of after Lokeren. Is that fair to say? I think that's fair to say. He was good both days, but ultimately he doesn't get a result on both days. Is that inexperience? Is it stupidity? What do you think? Because in Merksplas he has the same issues as in Hamme. Start isn't great, needs to move up, spend energy. In Merksplas he gets into position in the final lap. He has troubles overtaking Orts. He finally gets past Orts, but then he messes up the sandpit, is back behind Orts, messes up the final corner, can't sprint for second place, decides to let Van der Haar in front for the Superprestige classification. He finishes fourth. In Hamme, he's in contention for the win, but ultimately can't get in the wheel of Vandeputte. He's behind Iserbeet at the wrong moment. On the off-camber section, he messes up, is passed by Orts, and then in a complete lack of concentration, he, in an easy corner, goes straight into a wooden pole, crashes, finishes 14th. So the question again is inexperience, stupidity, something else?
It's weird to look at, I have to say, because when you see him race, especially let's count out the last lap, and you look at all the previous laps, and apart from his bad start, which is I don't even understand how that is within his possibilities, he then has to spend energy obviously to get to the front, but that goes rather smoothly from time to time, and then at certain moments you're like, he's going to rip the whole field apart with the sections that he sometimes puts in and the way he closes gaps. The power, you can just see it, that it is there, and the legs are in good shape. And he said it afterwards, after the race in Merksplas, that he had good legs, and that he felt that he should have finished the job and close the deal and be able to win the race, and he felt that he had the legs to do so. And I have to say that impression was that he gave me, and I thought, at certain moments that he was definitely the main favorite, but it's just his timing is a little bit off. And on the last lap, the mistakes that he makes, and I'm not even talking about the crash, because that's just a lack of concentration, but when the concentration was at its highest, he was making quite some mistakes. And it's, for someone that is normally technically quite good, even excellent at times, it's a bit weird to see. And I don't know if you can call it stupidity. I don't know if you can call it a lack of experience. I think that he has plenty of experience at this point already. I think that he is also someone that can deal with a lot of pressure. He has proven that. But it's just, it's a bit weird to see. And I think that if he can just sort it out a little bit, I think that he is already going to be able, because the form is there and the legs are good, but it's just he's not able to finish it, and he gets himself in a situation that you're like, how did he do that after what he did before? But yeah, that's how I look at it. I'm a bit confused if that wasn't already apparent.
So I would say that part of it is inexperience. The positioning thing can be a bit of inexperience. He is a bit of a baller, like leaving it late, trying to come at the exact right moment, and that leaves very little margin of error. Sometimes it's better to just take the hit on the extra energy and be in position. Like in Merksplas, he was in the wheel of Zweek, but then he didn't follow him through. So I would then say he should have been in the wheel of Orts. So he is the one deciding when to make the move. I do think that's a bit of inexperience, because he has not raced in this type of tight like racing at the front many times. It's a bit new for him. And it's easy to forget because it feels like he's been there forever, but that's mainly the name. The number of times he's actually been in those situations is quite rare. I wouldn't say it's stupidity either. I just wanted to give you like some hot dilemma to kind of make a case for what you think about it. It was a weird race. It did exactly come across as what you said. One moment good, the other moment bad. It's not really the flawlessness of technicality that we normally see with Thibaut Nys. Normally, you can hardly ever see him make a mistake, like in Lokeren 1 or 2, one crash, another time not on the good on the off camera, but for the rest, it's perfect execution, or nearing perfection at least. So it's a rough weekend, but I don't think we're going to see the same happening as last year, a big fallback. His form is obviously still good. The way that he was racing in Merksplas, especially like closing these gaps early in the race, that looked quite good. And it was a double weekend, and he's not done that many double weekends either. That could also have played a factor today. Maybe he was just completely bonked, got passed by Van Toerenhout, lost concentration, and then crashed, would make everything look just that extra bit worse. I think for the rest of Baloise, we can be fairly short. Lars van der Haar, he rode a weird race. Well, no, it's actually very easy to explain. He had a bad start both days and was basically fighting to get to the front ever since. Overtaking is hard, as we've said many times on these courses. And in Merksplas, it worked out, got gifted that third place. Today, he bonked and fell back, lost some time in the GC, but still a decent ride. Ron Haar raced in Hamme. He finished 9th, but at the start there was some sort of issue, mechanical issue, which put him at the back, and then he was behind the start crash. He did not do that special in Merksplas. He finished 14th there. Let's look at the entire top 10 of the men's race in Hamme. Niels Vandeputte with the win ahead of Elie Iserbyt, Felipe Orts. Then Michael van Toerenhout was 5th ahead of Lars van der Haar. Toon Aerts, Cameron Mason, Joren Viseure, Pim Ron Haar and Jente Michels completed the top 10. I don't think... Well, maybe we should. I'll let you decide. Issam, do you want to say anything about Orts' 3rd place in Hamme, 8th in Merksplas? I would almost say, like, considering the stretch of race results he's put together here in November, it's not that surprising to see him on the podium. And you said a few weeks ago, well, or last week maybe, it's just something I still need to get used to. But his last results are 2nd, 1st, 2nd, 8th, and 3rd.
Yeah, I don't think that we can say that we are surprised. He's just now someone that's just becoming a regular at the front. We got. I said it last week. I'm gonna say it again. I still have to get used to it, but it's a great side and I love it. It's great to see. And Merksplas was tactically maybe not his best race. I think at Hamme he did it a little bit better, and he got rewarded with that podium. And I think that he definitely deserved it. Great racing, great outing, and for me it's just going to be very interesting to see how, it's kind of similar to Van de Putte, how long is he going to be able to keep this form? Is he going to be able to keep this form till the Worlds, or is he going to take some a week or two off and then get back into the rhythm? He's someone that chooses his races a little bit better, so that will be interesting to see. But so far, he exceeded all my expectations, and I think everyone's expectation, and I think he's getting more and more fans. Every time when he's getting through the course, you hear his name getting shouted, Vamos Felipe, and that's in Belgium. Those guys know only Vamos and Felipe at the moment in terms of Spanish, so it's great to see and great to hear, and I think he's a fan favorite, and that's just a great side.
Well, yeah, the Belgians, for how much nationalism they have and for how much cyclocross is their sport, certainly do love to see a non-Dutch or Belgian rider, especially not Dutch rider, infiltrate into their sport. So Orts is not alone in that. I mean, Glask was also quite loved in Belgium until he almost won the World Championships, of course, but that's always how it goes. They won't be happy if Orts kind of stops Van Aert from becoming world champion, but until that's a realistic case, they'll support him and shout "De Vamos Felipe" or "Venga Felipe." That's another thing you hear quite a bit. Another rider that we saw from outside the traditional countries was Cameron Mason. He finished 7th. It was a good race for him. He still has some work to do to get back to the level that he showed last year at the European Championships, although this was, to be fair in his defense, not a great course for him. It was encouraging to see him finally get a good result. Hopefully this can lift him up mentally so he can strain together a couple of good results. Because in Merksplas, and this is my bridge to that race, he wasn't that good. He was 24th. In Merksplas, there were a couple of other protagonists, but the race scenario was quite similar in the men's race. We had, I think, 10 plus leaders until lap 7 out of 9. And then it got thinned out. There were 9 riders going into the final lap together. Arts was in the lead, but then Zweek passed him just before the sand pit, and Zweek pulled away through the sand. Nice couldn't really get to the wheel of Zweek because he messed up the sand pit, as I just said already. And then Zweek took the win ahead of Arts. Nice put a foot down in the final corner and let Van der Haar ahead. I think the two riders we need to discuss here is are Zweek and Arts. Zweek making it 2 in a row in the Superprestige, making especially you look a bit bad after your comments from last week. But yeah, it was a good race for him on a course that suits him well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on Zweek, I have to say that it is. I don't think that he had the best legs at Merksplas, and to be honest, I don't think that it was very representable in terms of the others and where he was able to finish. But he just rode a very smart race and picked his moment, and sometimes you need to do that. He is at the moment, in my opinion, I feel that he has legs that he's going to be able to do these attacks, but he has to gamble a lot, and then he can maybe be in a position in which he got it at Merksplas. And with that attack, you saw it. They were not able to respond, and he faded at the end. It became quite close with Arts closing in a little bit, but he managed to finish the job, and I think that is, hats off. Obviously, that's a hell of a performance. But I still do think that his form is it could get better for sure. But it's enough for a win, and he's able to do it, and I think that's a job well done. And I think that, as we have said already, it just shows that there are a couple of riders that are going to be able to fight for victory, and that is different than what we have seen for the last couple of years, where it was, we knew that there were 2-3 guys, maybe 4 if we were a bit lucky. But now, that list is getting longer of riders that can actually win a race, and that makes it exciting, and it's just good to see.
I won't be saying that we're going back to the times of Wellens and Nice, but it's been a very long time since we had this situation in cyclocross, because we had a ton of seasons in which Iserbyt dominated early season, and then Van Aert, but mainly Van der Poel the postseason. Before that, we had the Van der Poel domination era, and then only when they were quite young, we saw that there were a couple of big duels for the wins, for instance, with Valsleep and Van der Haar involved. But really, you need to go back over a decade by now to really get this type of situation with so many riders at the front. And I agree with all your points on Zweek. He needs to gamble. It worked out. But he also continues to be a bit inconsistent, because in Hamme he was nowhere. He was 16th on a course that should have also suited him. But because he gets these 2 big wins now, he's on 3 wins, he has a relatively good season to show for, because it is very tight at the top, and ultimately you're judged by wins and podiums, and he has 3 wins, and that's what his sponsors care about. So I think he will be quite pleased, despite still having that inconsistency to work on. Arts, I think, will also be pleased. He was the example of what I said. Sometimes it's better to take the hit of spending the energy, because he led quite a bit in that race in Merksplas, especially in the final lap. He probably knew it wasn't going to be enough for the win, but he still got second, and I think he will be happy with that. He also looked quite good in Hamme, fighting back from quite far back at the field. Again, we went over the points part last week. I think he should have gotten some more points elsewhere, but whatever, he's doing fine now. If it starts to get really muddy, he might make another step. He's clearly improving a bit, or the others are declining more than he is, but it's looking good for him, and we'll see what comes from that. I think those were the main protagonists of the weekend on the men's side. Then the women's side, I think we can also make a relative case that the races were quite similar, judging by the highlights and the results. Issam, 2 times Alvarado netting out Brandt, 2 times a very technical-ish course. Brandt trying to stay close, but Alvarado leading, putting Brandt under pressure in the technical sections, and Brandt not having enough to come around. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think for Merksplas, Brandt can definitely somewhat blame Casasola for having a gap to close, because Casasola kind of I think with Merksplas you have like this section in the woods still where you kind of go down and you have to go up again, and you can dismount from your bike and do that section. You can run it or you can stay on your bike, and staying on your bike is a little bit faster. But Casasola decided, as she did a couple of laps, to go running, and Brandt was kind of held back there. Alvarado got a gap and basically made sure that Brandt was never really able to close. But you need the legs to make that happen. I think Alvarado for sure got 2 courses this weekend where she can put someone under pressure technically as well. Just some sections, because of course Hamme is maybe a little bit more technical over the course of the circuit, but with Merksplas it's more sort of, you kind of move from section to section and you can put someone under pressure. But I think in both races we saw Brandt that was very strong, that has very good legs, but there's just someone a little bit better, with Alvarado having good legs and just that technical, that oomph a little bit more in the corners, and just being able to play it in her favor. And I think that is kind of what we saw. And I think in Hamme it was basically the same thing as well. I think that Casasola is someone that that if she gets the opportunity is going to be there, and even if maybe not able to be second or first, she's always going to try and run in the first couple of places. And that sometimes makes it a little bit difficult if you sleep a little and you got passed, and you have to overtake again, and sometimes a gap is made and then you have to close the gaps. And I think, to be honest, in Merksplas for sure Casasola costed Brandt an opportunity, and I think in Hamme a little less so, but it still definitely didn't help that she had to pass again and try to close the gap. I think that is just energy that you waste, and I think at Hamme she had a bigger chance of winning, but it was not meant to be.
No, I would like to circle back briefly to Alvarado and Brandt rather than Casasola, although I do think you're right that she is a rider that at some point will win one of these races. In Merksplas, yes, the technicalities were shoved into the first forest part of the course, also with those new stairs. But the sand pit was in the second part, and Alvarado is a better sand rider, and that was shown lap after lap, and that really played in her favor. I do think it's good that we see the fields becoming more packed. Slowly we're seeing more and more riders come to the cross. So Backstedt is here now, Schreiber is here now. We're waiting for Molegraaf, for instance. She was supposed to start the season way earlier. I don't know what happened, but I imagine there's been some sort of injury or illness that severely put her back. Pieterse, of course, the big name we're waiting for. Unfortunately, no Van Anrooy. But slowly but surely, these fields are becoming more and more stacked. So hopefully we'll see a fit Zemanova again at some point. And hopefully more and more riders will come in. And for instance, Maghalie Rochette can come in. Isabella Holmgren, who raced the Canadian Championships and won there. When these riders pop in, we'll see more things to talk about. Because by now it's almost, we're nearing the second full month of cross, and it's really the same riders we've been talking about, and it's quite clear that Alvarado and Brandt are quite evenly matched, and depending on the course, whoever it suits better usually comes out on top, bearing any bad luck like we had last week in Lokeren for Alvarado. So these results don't really surprise me, that especially in Hamme. I think it's a shame that the labyrinth is now at the beginning of the course. I liked it more when it was at the end. It would have also suited Alvarado better if it was at the end, but she still managed to get Brandt on the ropes constantly throughout those sections. And I don't really know, sometimes I feel like Brandt is obsessing over the X2O trophy classification. Obviously it's important because it's organized by Golazzo, which is also the owner of her team, but she has a 2-minute lead on Casasola and a 4-minute 19 lead on Vorst. Like, you're not going to lose that classification anymore. Barring any like DNFs or something, nothing will happen. And it also, I'm not gonna do the X2O rant today, Issam, but to me, it tells enough if the rider in 10th after 3 races is Van Empel, who did 1 race and is 10 minutes down. But everyone by now probably knows how I feel about the X2O trophy, so I'll save you that rant and instead comment on the race on Sunday, in Hamme, where we had Casasola third. But what did you think about Backstedt? Because she had a fast start and then finished fourth. I think that was a decent result. Maybe she blew up a little bit, but on this course, I would say it's kind of worth it almost. Just like Schreiber on Saturday. Both set out fast, both couldn't really keep it up. Schreiber played a bit more at the front, also took a podium finish there with a third place. I would say on this course, because it's so technical and because it stretches out so quickly, and because if you're gapped, it's very hard to come back to a group, it plays into the favor of those who have a good start. Of course, Schreiber is notorious for her fast starts, but I also think it helped Backstedt. Without that blistering start, she would probably have had a harder time, would have been around Annemarie Vorst to finish fifth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially if we focus now on Backstedt and Hamme, I think that fast start for sure was the foundation for fourth place. But you also need a good feeling. The legs need to be good to do that, and I think she probably felt quite good, had that opening of a race, and I think that from there on she managed to hang on quite well to fourth in the end and managed that quite well. I think that it was a very good race from her side, a progression for sure, and it's interesting to see that in a short time she's able to already have that progression. We shouldn't now think that okay, now next week we're going into the podiums. But I think it's quite encouraging to see where she's at the moment. I think that the shape is getting there, and that is a good sight. I think that she's definitely someone, as we know, with a lot of talent that we are just kind of basically waiting for it to develop and get better. And I feel that who knows what we're going to see this season. That's going to be the main question. What are we going to see from Backstedt this season? I think the signs are good, and we have to wait and see how that will play out. But with these courses that we got, especially Hamme, if you start fast, you just get in a sort of a rhythm, and then when you're in that rhythm, it's difficult to get out of it. And if you don't have to waste that much energy to do so, it's just it's a bonus and it's a plus. And she made absolutely the best out of that and was able to finish quite well in the end with the fourth place.
To me, that's one of the biggest questions, if not the biggest question. What can Zoe Backstedt do this season? She's the U23 world champion. She's a third-year U23. I want to see that. I want to see how good she is against Van Empel, against Buck Petersen on a course that's completely catering to her strengths. I know she will struggle on the more technical courses, and it's not realistic to expect for now that she will be able to compete for wins or even podiums there. But give me Dendermonde in the mud at the end of the Christmas period. Give me that thick mud, running, power. I want to see that. I want to see how she will do there. She was on the podium of that race last year. I want to see if it's better now. Can she compete for the win if everything is perfect to her? And it's too early to discuss, but what would she do if she, on those type of courses, is able to compete with the best for victories? Does she make the decision to race Elite Worlds, or does she go for another U23 title? Obviously, the course in Louvain is good for her. It's weird to think about, but it's arguably the best course for her in the next 3 years. It's her best shot at the Elite title, because after this we're going to Hulst and Oostende, very technical and very sandy, both things she struggles with. So I'm not going to get too far ahead, but for me, these are the reasons why I'm so curious to see how she will do this year. But with Schreiber on the up, if on the U23 World Championships she can race better than at the European Championships, depending on the course situation, she could be a very worthy opponent for Backstedt. I will always have more faith in Backstedt at the moment. It matters the most. But I am curious to see what Schreiber can do. She's shown in Merksplas that on her day, on her course, if everything goes her way, she can be on the podium of an elite race. She can beat Zoe Backstedt. So this is an interesting dynamic, and in this, I already mentioned it, Bentveld hasn't really been fully living up to expectations. I don't think Bentveld is doing bad, but Bentveld, in the eyes of Mette Penningen, is expected to be competing, if not beating, Backstedt and Schreiber. And that's not happening for now. These are the best U23 riders of the moment. I'm again interested to see how Isabella Holmgren will do when she files in here. She was very good at the World Championships last year. She destroyed pretty much everyone, bar Magali Rochette at the Canadian Championships. So I look forward to that U23 dynamic, and that I've pivoted so far away from really the races here this weekend is not only because I just watched the highlights, it's also because everything kind of falls in its place like we've seen it this season. So I'll hand it to you, Issam. What should we talk about more?
um, well. I think we can briefly talk about the performance or the weekend of Annemarie Vorst. I think that 6th at Merksplas, 5th at Hamme. It was nothing out of the extraordinary. It was, as we already said before, it fell into place, and she was kind of up there. That was, that was eventually the maximum achievable. A position that was well deserved. Nothing really happened that changed that or something. It was all just the performance that was that good for a 5th and 6th place, and I'm just starting to question if we are going to see a progress over the course of the next couple of races, or if that is it really, that the level is what we can expect from Vorst for the rest of the season, and we might maybe see 1 or 2 races where it's getting a little better. But I think it's an interesting development in a way that it's, if you look at the her last 5 races, it's basically 4 or 5 5th place and 1 6th place. So it's there is consistency, but I don't know if that is the consistency she's really happy about.
It's not the improvement that many were looking for, and in the Koppenberg podcast, I also warned for that. She had the fitness boost on the Koppenberg, the freshness boost, and that's kind of ebbing away as she's settling into racing. So I feel this is kind of what it is for Vorst. She has not been able to make steps like Brandt and Alvarado, and with Casasola consistently up there now, with Backstedt and Schreiber, Van der Heijden, just other riders that are developing, this is kind of where she is right now. I said it before, maybe it would have been wise for her to change environment, try a different team, see how a different trainer could have worked out for her. Apparently she's now working with Niels Albert, so she did try that within the structure of her own team. Camille van den Berg left the Cyclocross Reds. He's now working for the Koester Bouwpunt. So she is in a new environment, kind of, within the same structure and the same team. But yeah, I feel this is just what it is for Vorst. And I don't think if it will get much better. And I also don't really know if it matters to her. Does she really struggle with the fact that this is where she is now, or is she still modestly satisfied? I haven't really heard any quotes from her on that, but that would be an interesting insight to try and get when I'm in Dublin, if she races there, for instance. So that's one thing. And then I think a final thing is this weekend, Laura Verdonschot to 10th places. That was a subpar weekend for her.
I don't think she will be looking back on this weekend and be very, very satisfied with it. I think it was never really played a role, I have to say. And that is, I think, to be honest, looking at how she started the season and the expectations, not particularly where we expected her at this point of the season. And we can make the case that the courses were not amazing for her. It's not really where she can shine that much, but I still feel that with a relatively good condition, she probably would have been able to finish a little bit higher up. And I don't know, it's a bit difficult. Her situation at the moment, how that will develop, if it's going to stay this way, or maybe she needs 1 or 2 weeks off, train a little bit, and then get back and see if that changes anything. I don't think that it's particularly also a moment of panic. Could be just a bad weekend and just the course is not really suiting you, and the focus being on next weekend. But it's not great. And you just have to hope that it's not going to be the momentum going a bit downwards, and this basically being the pattern for the next couple of weeks. I hope at least it's not that case, and hopefully she's going to be able to come with some better results. Because if we focus, solely on Belgium for a moment, I think that if we look for the national championships, this is not the form that she, if she wants to win it, she shouldn't be showing up with this form. It needs to be a little bit better, because I think that Ribeiro has been showing some great form in the last couple of races. So it's not great. Situation is not amazing, and we have to wait and see how that will play out in the next couple of weeks. That's just one of those questions that will be answered in the next couple of races.
Well, in her defense, she did still beat Ribeiro twice this weekend, despite not performing great. But let's also just look at her season, Issam, because the final point I want to make is kind of the one that we already made about Vandeputte. The races are racking up, and for Verdonschot even more, because she started her season in September. She's been racing for 3 months now. And she did those 4 races in the UK. Then she went to Spain for 2 weekends, and then she picked up the circuit here, did a lot of racing here as well. I think she's probably already nearing the 20 races. So then it's not weird that the tiredness is kicking in. So it would be time for her. She's one of these riders that's hunkering for the training camp in Spain. She'll obviously race Antwerp next week, hopefully find a lot of sand in the course. That's very tough, because that's something she obviously excels in. But after that, it will probably be a training camp, and then we'll see. Because, as I said, a lot of races, and that's obviously factoring in. Now, that's the phase of the season we are in. The closer you come towards the end of December, the closer it feels like you're getting to the restart of the cyclocross season, because everyone is like, oh, tiredness. We need to gear up. We need to reboot ourselves. We need to get the going. And now it's, of course, really weird, because the World Cup is starting next week, and there's zero hype for it, because the season is so far underway, and the riders are tired, and they're looking forward to going to Spain instead of racing the first World Cup. So it is what it is, and it obviously only time can tell is the reformed World Cup a success or not. We'll be back this week with a preview for that. I won't cover all the results of this weekend. That's really too much to do in this podcast with how many races there were.
Yeah, let's see how big of a success that will be, the opening of the World Cup and the World Cup in general. But as you said, we got a preview for that to cover. And thank you for having me. And I think that is it.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for being here, covering the women's races, mostly for me. Normally next week we should have 2 episodes again. I'll still be on the road, but wow, should be fine. We'll be back with a preview for Antwerp this weekend, and then to compensate for the single episode of this weekend, I will make a special episode with the 15-16s here at this block to cover some grassroots racing programs here. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will be back later this week with multiple episodes. See you guys then. Goodbye.